One thing about what we're trying to do is in the age of AI, where AI has become so compelling to talk to and such a good sort of companion / assistant, I think actually enabling human conversations and making them easier to access and higher value is more important than ever. So one thing we do on Tribe I didn't mention is we also enable IRL events and virtual events so people can actually see each other's faces and talk. I think that's important as well. So we really care about human connections.
Raj, welcome to the One Away Show.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you here. So Raj, what is the one away moment that you want to share with us today?
What do you mean by one away moment? How do you define that?
So trajectory changing, right? You think you've done a lot of things. You're on a pretty cool path today with what you're doing. So you can answer it from a number of directions. It could be personal, professional, mix of the two. It could be multiple moments we roll through.
I was on a path to be a doctor, a medical doctor, in my first year of college. So I was very strong academically. So I was and my parents always wanted me to be a doctor. It's like the Indian dream, is to have your kid be a doctor. And so I was on a path when I got into college to that was my kind of incepted into me as going to be your goal or your career goal. And I think if I had to think of what changed, my trajectory in a very dramatic way, was I took an econ course with a very inspiring professor in Waterloo called, his name is Larry Smith, and he's a legend in the University of Waterloo. And he gives, his lectures are 3 hours long, and he talks about how companies are built and how empires are built and how they change the global trajectory, right? And that was very inspiring to me because it was I can have this level of impact, if I built a company, whereas if I'm a doctor, I can have a lot of impact, but for a few people at a time. And so, I think that was a big, kind of inspiring. I actually took an economics degree along with my engineering degree because of him. And then I started my first organizations in college. I had my first ideas for companies, shortly after, and started iterating on things and started building stuff for companies shortly after that. So it was, I would say it was eye-opening, and I attribute it to this one professor.
So what you're saying is, hey, I was a doctor. That's my path. I was going to be a doctor. My impact was going to be just based on one person at a time. Versus, okay, I can build a global company of global impact. What was it about that though that maybe captured your interest, where it was you know what, thinking in this way is compelling enough for me to say, okay, I'm gonna not ditch the path, but ultimately really broaden my aperture of what's possible for my life. Why was that for you?
Yeah, I think it was this idea that one individual could have outsized impact on not just a lot of people, but also the sweep of history, how history was changed by these entrepreneurs. I remember my professor talking about Walmart, as one example, how this family, the Sam Walton and all those people, came up with this novel idea of how groceries should be, sold, or products should be sold. That was one example of many examples that he gave. And, this idea that small, individuals could have a huge impact on just how everyone lives their day-to-day life. That was very attractive to me because I wanted to have a lot of impact. I knew at that point that I was pretty good at a lot of things. I was good academically, but I could figure out new problems quickly. I was hardworking, and I was able to have an impact if I put my mind to something. So, for me, there was a responsibility to apply my skills to the biggest impact thing. I don't want to, those skills to go to waste. I realized that not everyone had those skills. And so I was okay, I have something here that, is something unique. How do I apply it in the most, so that society would benefit, from that in the most powerful way. And, I was thought about being a politician or other, kind of commonly tread, hey, I could help a lot of people doing this. And my goal also, when I was coming to building a company, is not just building a company, but also whatever proceeds I made, I would donate and help people who were suffering. as well. That was something I've had for many years, even earlier into teenagerhood, and as a kid, I wanted to like help the poorest of the poor, and people who are left behind by society, kind of thrive. So, I always had this thought, like, if I build this global empire, and help a lot of people, then I could use the proceeds of that to help even more people. So it was like this magnifying benefit. And, sort of the Bill Gates thing, where he's built a great company and then, he donates all his wealth. I think I had this idea even before Bill Gates did that. And, I was like, wow, he kind of followed this concept, right? Exactly what I was thinking of. And, but yeah, that was always sort of thing. And the other idea was like, yeah, being a politician, but, I could see all the issues with that, early on as well. Yeah.
Yeah, super interesting. And it's neat that you, it seems like you're thinking at a big scale from a young age, and you were thinking about just the impact you're going to have. And also, once you had the impact, actually, like what you were going to do with it. So you were in Canada, you were in Waterloo at the time. What made you say, I'm going to come to Silicon Valley, I'm going to come to San Francisco, and help me understand that?
Yeah, I didn't have a clear vision of that early on. There wasn't a goal to come to Silicon Valley. There was just a goal of like, how do I build, something significant? My undergrad degree was in chemical engineering, and it's a very different type of engineering. It's not, you don't get exposure to Silicon Valley. You actually end up going into small towns or rural areas, to working in like chemical plants or oil plants or like oil refineries. And you tend to work where the factories are, which tend to be not near where people are, right? So, or like you have these factory towns. So I lived in Waterloo's a core program. I got to study and work, and my workplaces always tend to be in like random small towns. So I didn't have that exposure, to like a hub like Silicon Valley, really through my degree. It was only when I really started working on the company that, was started Zimride and became Lyft, and I started learning how to code. And then I got some exposure to Silicon Valley that way. And then when I learned a lot about Silicon Valley when like the iPhone and all this stuff was getting buzz, and like Facebook was starting to grow up. I started to learn more about it just from the news and watching videos, online. I always had a dream to go to MIT, so I applied and got in for a PhD and MBA program, which was a lifelong kind of dream of mine to be at a top institution. But at that point, ironically, I already knew that I didn't want to go to MIT, so I got in for the sake of getting in, and I went to MIT just for like, hey, to say I went there. But I remember going for my visit. When you're admitted to something, you go for a visit. And I told all the other students there, like, I'm just going to drop out, like, even before I'm enrolled. So I'm just going to, I was very public with my intentions. I'm like, I'm going to come here, I'll find some co-founders or whatever, I'll recruit some talent, and then I'll just drop out and start a company because that's what you would want to do. So that's actually what ended up happening. And once you're at MIT, you're already in the US, and you can kind of see that all the gravity in the US is in Silicon Valley for starting companies. And all the money is there, all the talent moves there. There was a guy who invested in my second company, Presto, which called Elocard at the time. His name is Drew Houston. He's the founder and CEO of Dropbox. And he invested, and he told me you should move to Silicon Valley because, you're going to get way higher leverage on your skills here because people value young talent much more in Silicon Valley than they do in anywhere else in the world. And he was totally right about that. And then, we came here, we got into Y Combinator and became part of that ecosystem as well. And I moved out, for those purposes. And then also the weather is much better in Silicon Valley than Boston. So I like playing outdoor soccer and other sports. And I was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. I'll come there. And good personally and good professionally as well. And never looked back since then. This was 2010.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I think you've seen a lot of companies from all stages, right? Obviously, what you did with Lyft, what you did with Presto. I mean, done some notable investments. But what I would like to focus on, and we can dive into these other avenues as much as you'd like, but where I think I'd really like to point the conversation is to what you're focused on now, mostly with your time. Obviously, I know you're doing Lima, but your new technology company, Tribe, where you are built an incredible group chat platform to connect people through shared interest. How did this come to life? What did you see? What's wrong? Like for those on their WhatsApp and listening to this, like what was it about group chat that was like innovative to you? So I want to change how things are done here.
Yeah, good question. So I've always liked to build companies that could affect a lot of people. Going back to my original motivations, right? So it's not a company that just makes money. It's a company that affects the lives of a lot of people, and it hopefully improves those lives in a significant way. So that was the original concept behind Zimride, which became Lyft, and then also Presto, which was basically putting a tablet on every restaurant table originally, so guests could order and pay from their seat without waiting. And then later on, it became AI for drive-thrus, taking voice orders using AI, and freeing up the humans to go and make the restaurant more productive. And so everything I've done is consumer facing and has a big consumer impact. And so the idea for Try came from me experiencing kind of what WhatsApp had from a group chat perspective. And I realized that there was a lot of power in the group chat, and it was almost like this virtual dinner party where you got to really build trust with people over time. And from wherever you are, you could be on the toilet and be talking to your friends, or you could be in an airplane, or you can be in a taxi somewhere, and you'll be really in touch with a group of people. And there's something really powerful about that, where you actually it almost happens by accident, where you end up talking about something maybe you share in common, but then over time you end up building trust with your existing friends and making new friends, people you didn't really know before, and building trust with them. So then I realized I wanted a lot more of that. I actually wanted a group chat for every one of my interests, so I could talk to a group of people that are like a peer group, so that were sharing a similar life stage or sharing a similar interest. And I found it was a great way to learn. It was the best way to learn is with a peer group of people. And I started wanting just a lot more of it. And I realized WhatsApp had a lot of limitations. It didn't let you even find another group chat to discuss. So you had to know people. So I started Googling, where could I find a soccer group chat, or where could I find a movies group chat? And I couldn't find anything. The only alternative is Reddit, which is a fully anonymous. You don't really know anyone there. It's actually a pretty negative environment in many ways too. Discords were tens of thousands of people on a single server. If there was something at all, and there was no intimacy there. There was just this steady stream of chats. Twitter, cesspool in many ways, and not a great place to have focused conversations. So there was nothing there for community, for these sort of interest-based communities. And I realized that also that WhatsApp didn't really care, about the communities. Signal, all these other alternatives, Telegram, they didn't really care about building communities. Their business model didn't align with it. Telegram seemed to be focused on crypto. Signal was super private. You can't go to a dinner party and be super private. These are just goals that are at odds with each other. You're going to have to share if you're going to go on a dinner party. And it didn't allow that. So I was well, this needs to be a new type of product. And that's what came to the idea of Tribe. And it's how do we maximize trust between a group of people such that they all feel like they really know each other, and they get closer to each other as well as their interest through these interest-based group chats. And the idea is also to build the best group chat platform that's ever existed. So we look at, our team now looks at all these other platforms and we're we can do way better, and we can make this more engaging. You can do activities together, not just chat. The chat can be better structured. You can use AI in intelligent ways to power human conversations. You can focus on trust building versus privacy. I think those are, again, at odds with each other. And so we've taken a number of very opinionated stances on all the things that we think matter to community building. And I think we've come up with a product that's unlike anything else. We thought before it might be a WhatsApp competitor. Now I feel like it's its own category. I don't think there's anything like it out there.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think it totally resonates. As I've watched it from the ground floor. I mean, remember when, it first was getting going, and then now where it is today. I mean, I think it's really morphed. I think what you started out with, from what I recall, was like just the group chat experience was so bad, right? Like it is so bad the way it is. The designs are terrible. The platforms out there aren't great. The direction that it's going to, I would say, like a new age Reddit in many ways, that's accessible, where you can see people and understand who you're talking to, I think is very compelling, especially in a world where people are always trying to find people, groups, interests, and people within those where they can, find people like them and do activities with others. So personally, like the direction of interest and meeting people through those interests one day at a global level, like I think is very compelling and thought-provoking. For you, so you've, I think, clearly define like, the value prop in the market, or the differentiation. I think we understand the problems with group chats. Like, how are you growing it right now? Like, what is the kind of long term for you, and like what you see for like where you're trying to take the platform, and like how are you going about it right now, day to day?
Yeah, and thanks for saying that. I appreciate the kind words. And look, I think one thing about what we're trying to do is, like, in the age of AI, where AI has become so compelling to talk to, and such a good sort of companion / assistant. I think actually enabling human conversations and making them easier to access and higher value is more important than ever. So, Tribe is what we do on Tribe. One thing we do on Tribe, I didn't mention, is like we also enable like IRL events and virtual events, so people can actually see each other's faces and talk. I think that's important as well. So we really care about human connections. And then we've been working on it for a couple of years now. We've been building a platform that we think is highly compelling, highly retentive. People are like it. They want to tell their friends about it. We haven't actually launched it yet. We haven't done any official PR or anything like that. But it's been, it's gotten quite a lot of good reviews. It's like 4.9 on the App Store right now. People are recommending to their friends, are creating tribes on there. We're going to be approaching 10,000 users this year, on the platform, even without a launch. So we actually didn't want to like do the type of thing where we just make a big splash, and then like Threads did and some other apps that just make a big splash, big announcement, get a bunch of people. No one likes the app, they just leave, right? Or like, most people don't like them. We actually are trying to build it more organically, where we build it with, a few users who give us feedback, help us improve it, build a vision that we think is real before we let in a lot of people. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. And the other thing about the app is that it's completely ad-free. So we want to build a different business model as well. So we don't want to like create this thing where we're trying to capture people's attention using like some weird mechanics. Like I was on Facebook the other day, and they just keep showing you videos of girls because they were trying to capture your attention and like show you more ads, right? And ultimately, like that's like the worst thing I could do is like just like do these like sort of clickbait, attention grabbing things. Twitter does a bunch of them too. Instagram does a bunch of this, and kind of force you to doom scroll, or try to encourage you to doom scroll and not really enjoy your life or feel happy at the end of it. So we're trying to build an experience that people actually enjoy, and they will tell their friends about, something that they feel like makes their lives better. So that's the key thing that we're trying to do. We will eventually launch it probably sometime this year. And we also have a product for business leaders where we can build a community as a service. So if someone wants to build a community around their business, around their target group of customers or advisors or whatever it is, we will go out and help them recruit people for that. We'll onboard them, we'll keep them engaged, and all the business leader needs to do is show up. We call this Tribe Curator, and that's also taking off as well. So we have both a consumer layer and a business layer that are growing.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that's super. I remember chatting with you about that a few months ago or whenever, and it's like, this is super compelling because I think, one, people just they have trouble finding their place, right? They have trouble finding their place of certain interest. They also have trouble building on the other side of that, like people who want to start things, who are busy or have companies, they want to start communities for their brand or brand activations or other components. So I think there's problems on two sides when you look at community building. And I think you're interestingly looking at them from both angles. how like from your experience, right? I know you're at the earlier stages of building out communities now, like for people, along with creating groups for people to have communities. If I'm explaining that well, let me know. But what do you see as the biggest challenge of saying when someone's like, "Hey, uh, I would love to have a group of people around me that do X, Y, Z, but I need someone to start it." Like, why can't they do that on their own? Like, why is Tribe to you like the natural destination for them to like have and start their community, and you guys actually do it for them?
Yeah, absolutely. A great question. And thank you for being an early customer of Tribe
That's
Curator as
right.
well. Yes, actually, I think the idea came from you initially. So it's a big credit to you.
Oh, what was that?
Uh,
I thought you had other people talk to you about it, but one of the
yeah,
early ideas.
yeah, absolutely. It definitely pushed us in that direction. So, and it's, it is very popular with a lot of different businesses now. And yeah, so community building is super hard, and it's like it's so hard that you can't even really create like a playbook for it. It's you definitely can't AI prompt it because you're dealing with real humans, and humans are different, and you need to know what to say to them and when. And humans have this natural sort of um, aversion to like talking to robots. I think like they don't want to talk to like automation stuff very often unless they're like doing it for like purposes that are like very private, right? But so private talking to robots actually works, but like I think like getting a robot to build a community is really hard. So you basically need other humans to do it. um, and so you need to find the people who have the exact same interest, or have the same alignment with a specific niche. And that's not easy. That's not an easy problem at all. And how do you get them to pay attention to this community that's being built? How do you get them to join the community? You have to, they have to feel like it's valuable to them. And each community is different from that perspective. Like people have different motivations for joining a founders tribe, or like we have one that's for like investing in art, or, we have one with like patients of a rare disease. There's like different types of communities that are built, and each one have different motivations. They have different questions. They live in different places. They have, they visit different websites, and so there's no one size fits all. And that's why it's quite difficult to put together the community, and then keep them engaged is also difficult too. They need to see valuable content to them, and that can't be just automated content because they'll be like, I can get that anywhere. So you need to get, 10 plus people who are like actively chatting in a community for it to be valuable to the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th person. And that's what we specialize in, is getting the active, figuring out how to lower that activation energy to getting that community started. So people are chatting regularly. There's a baseline of trust that develops between them. Um, and then people feel like they can chat with each other and build new connections. But, I would say it takes a lot of work, takes a lot of attention. But it's very valuable once it's built. It's like one of the things that you could, if it was taken away from someone who was a part of that community, it would be highly painful, I think, for that person. Once you start to rely on a community and that's taken away, you feel a sense of emptiness in your life if one of the community is taken away. So even though building it is hard, it's very worthwhile, and it can completely change someone's life, in a very positive way.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, what inspired me about like Drive at the beginning, I used to obviously run this community for a fund back in the day. And to your point about, I knew how hard it was to start, and I also knew like the sense I felt being a part of it, right? And I think you hit the nail on the head for both. It's like for people who want to start a community, like there is a lot of friction, right? So like yes, plus one, but if you bring people into something that they feel a part of, in a way that's ongoing and valuable, like, and then that's removed. I've felt it from both. It is painful. So then my question for you is, okay, you're solving for like the activation energy it takes to get something spun up. Now, if I'm a business person or even just an everyday person, I'm looking for something, like how are you driving community leaders, people who are starting their own tribes, tribes that you're starting for other people? How are you thinking about ongoing value? Yes, it's organic, but parts can be systematic to a degree. So like, what's your like point of view on like how to create very valuable, recurring, ongoing tribes that last the test of time?
Yeah, it's a great question as well. I mean, look, I think the key is having a good core group of people who have genuine passion for the subject at hand. Like the passion is very infectious. Once you have a few people who are talking about something, they know about it, they care about it. Those people are would end up being the core of a tribe, right? The founding members of a tribe. They actually can make or break the tribe. And that's another thing about community. Early on, one bad member of a tribe can actually kill it. And we're probably all in some group chats where some people are just posting random stuff, and there's not moderated, and it's not like there's no intent there by the leaders, and so people just feel like this sucks. People are not talking about stuff that related to the topic, or they're not very high value. So you have to monitor that very closely, and so you have to make sure everyone is high quality, high signal in the early days. And if you can do that, then and you can keep that momentum where every person joining is valuable, then it becomes extremely valuable to everyone. But if you mess that up along the way, or if you do something that reduces trust amongst the members, then people start to turn off. And so I think part of it is the type of people who you let in, and the type of people you track, the type of people you let in, and then the type of conversation that is had. I think moderating a dinner party or moderating a group chat are very specialized skills, and people, in the age of AI, those are going to be very important. Let's put it that way. Like knowing how to talk to humans is going to be so important.
Can we peel that onion a bit?
Yeah.
Let's talk about like the moderator toolkit. If you were to say, this is my philosophy, or these are the ingredients of an exceptional moderator who knows how to talk to humans, and reverse engineer that, what are the things that you'd look for to say, this is going to be a great host of a tribe, and this is kind of the skills it takes to do so?
Yeah. Look, I think you need a high EQ in general. Like you need to be very empathetic with other people. You need to have high level of empathy and caring. You need to be very curious about other folks. You want them to talk more. You want to get them out of their shell. You want to make connections. So you can say, hey, this person said this. Oh, you might want to talk to this person, right? This person is also very interested in that. You're very good at that, Brian, right? You're always making connections. And you also want to be, somewhat of an expert in the subject yourself, so you can come up with interesting stuff to talk about. And when something is like an interesting point or something that is not an interesting point, and you should know the difference. And so you need to have some level of expertise. So you need to be super high EQ. You need to be like, have high empathy, high curiosity. You need to be an expert in the subject. That's not a lot of people who can do that, right? And so there's actually a very small set, and some of that can be trained, some of that can't be trained. Like expertise in a subject, if you can't generally train that if you're not an expert, right? Like one of our most active tribes, a tribe is like NHL hockey, and that's not an area I know at all. I just go in there and I'm amazed at these people talking about this stuff that really I don't know anything about. And, but they love it. They love talking about, something that they care about. And, it's great to see, and sometimes if you know a little bit about something, you can learn a lot from other people who are experts. But if you know nothing, you might as well, be looking into the shop window. You can't really touch it at all, right? But I think those are the different qualities that you need. Anything you would add, Brian? I mean, you probably have opinions on this.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you captured it. I mean, the image. So one, when you called me out earlier, I was writing down the name of a person I think would be perfect for you. So it's ironic, the timing. Two, I was getting the image in my head of like Boston sports fans while you're talking about the NHL, and just like at a bar, like just kind of going back. Like it's sometimes for people, sports are their lives, or the topic of interest are their lives. So I do think, to your point, yes, and I very much agree with you. Like it does. I think people who have expertise as well, though, they're not always the best at mobilizing it or catalyzing the expertise and getting that expertise out there. But when you create a platform for a group of people to share that expertise, yeah, like I think that's extremely powerful. And I don't think that's, to your point, an easy skill to teach. And I think in the world that we're going into is incredibly effective to mobilize people around a shared set of interest. I mean, I think what you were talking about on like the NHL side, and you said, I know nothing about this. I think that's like really interesting conceptually or intellectually is you have a platform that you might not be an expert on anything of these topics. And it's not like you're just going on a platform and saying, I'm interested in food and movies and science. And you get like, recommend articles or something like you can literally go in real time, talk to people and engage, or just lurk and like learn from like live people. So my question to you is, let's just say a few years out, like your access to real-time live information, you might call it news, you might call it like qualitative insights. Like what does that mean for Tribe as a business? And let's say 3 years down the road and you have thousands or 900 communities on your platform that are super engaged across these very diversified topics. Like that has to be really interesting from a business perspective. My question is like, how do you think about that? Like when that reality comes true?
I think, we want to build great communities. Our business model is really going to be focused on like humans paying for us, like in terms of not being ad driven. And we don't want to be too commercial. We do want this feel of a dinner party. But to get like the better food at the dinner party, you pay a bit more. But but it has direct value to people there. So that's how we want to build it, and we don't really care if we leave money on the table for that purpose. We just want to build, the app that we think people will love, and the experience that people will love. And the most important thing for us is getting great people on the platform. We want to have people who are there in good faith. They actually want to converse with other humans. They don't want to. They're not trolls. They're not bots. They're not like we don't. 90% of Twitter would not make it on this platform, right? We want to genuinely encourage, and people who are overly negative and like, we don't want those people in our lives. We don't want them on the platform. So come in if you want to build real connection and have a good conversation. But we don't mind turning people away as well.
Yeah, and by the way, I didn't mean it more so like, how are you going to commercialize it? I meant it more so like, to me, it's very interesting if you have subject matter experts and evangelize people in dedicated group spaces across so many different topics and like the possibilities of what you can do with that. Like when that reality is true, I guess what I'm saying is, how do you enrich that, expand upon it, connect the dots between it, like from probably more so from a product level and an experience level of the user.
Yeah, I mean, I think we want to give them the tools that they need to have really rich conversations and learn more about what they want to learn about. That's our main motivation. I don't know if we'll do anything else beyond that. So we'll see. We'll see how that works over long term. But we're not trying to find different ways to like monetize or commercialize like the people who are on the platform. But we are trying to empower them to be more successful and get closer to what they want to get to.
Okay. I mean, I like the direction. I like where it's going. I think I've asked all the questions on Tribe I've wanted to ask. Is there anything that I haven't asked on Tribe that I should be asking?
Let me see. Yeah, I think you've asked all the basic questions. I mean, people might ask them, tribechat.com is where you can find the platform. There's also like this thing where you can create a public profile and claim a unique link, like a unique public profile link, and other people can join your tribes. So that's one thing that we're doing that is pretty special is like, we think like the best way to stay in touch with someone you might meet at a party or an event or whatever isn't just to add them on LinkedIn. It's just have them in your group chats. That will create real connection over time. Whereas this, like LinkedIn would just be, very passive where you add them and you're done. Right. So that's what most people do nowadays. I mean, just add them on LinkedIn, maybe Instagram, but there's really nothing else. There's no communication.
There is like I think a difference in energy though, when you're like in a group chat versus like a one-to-one LinkedIn message, because it's just a different standard and energy that you bring into that conversation versus like how you do something with one person versus 15 people.
Yeah. And DMs are part of Tribe too. But the thing is, most people just add someone on LinkedIn and never talk to them again. So there isn't a lot of like necessarily messaging going on. It's hard to stay in touch with so many people. Like it's hard to be DMing all these people. It's actually much more efficient to stay in touch with people on a group chat. So like, you and I are a bunch of group chats, or, me and other founders on a bunch of group chats. While you're talking about things that interest you, you build trust as a byproduct of that. So, that's what I would encourage people to do, is like think about how they can incorporate more group chats in their life and invite people that they meet that are interesting to those group chats.
Yeah. No, I like it. Well, Raj, this has been super stimulating. I'm super stoked for your future on Tribe. For those who want to join the hiking club, we have one called the Arcbound Hiking Collective, I think is, yeah. So, you can join that too if you want to hike in the Bay Area. So
yeah, you can search for it with Arcbound, or we can drop a link, I'm sure.
No, it's all good. We'll drop it to Tribe specifically, but yeah. All right. Well, Raj, thanks so much. And people can reach out to you or find you where?
On Tribe, tribechat.com/Raj. So it's, you can DM me or you can join my tribes.
Thanks for coming on today.
Yeah. The other thing, by the way, with the profiles on Tribe is that you can actually put your social profiles on there. So it acts like a link tree as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember. Yeah, but you have to, I think I got my Brian URL through it as well.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So you can just add your social profiles in there. So anyone wants to like stay in touch with you, you just send them that, and then people can DM from there too.
By the way, I really like that feature on it. So yes, if you're still listening, you should definitely type your profile and upgrade so you can own your URL.